Hello and welcome everyone to the premiere episode of the Emancipated Citizen podcast.
I'm Benjamin Snow. Zach and I have been friends for a few years now, and we've both been volunteering with the Atheist Support Network, trying to help people in danger for being non-religious, mostly ex-Muslims. I've done a lot of interesting things in my life. I'm also the host of the Biosphere Solutions podcast, which I need to make more episodes of. I've also served in the Peace Corps and have been interested in human rights for a long time. My other podcast is a lot of research about how to protect yourself from infectious disease, how to deal with climate change. Probably eventually do episodes on preserving certain species, dealing with invasives, avoiding toxic chemicals that may get released into the environment. But Zach has a more interesting biography. Zach, you want to tell us about yours?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the great introduction. I'm a human rights activist from Saudi Arabia. Lived most of my life there. Yeah, started living in Germany in 2018. I've been, like Ben said, I have been volunteering at the Atheist Support Network. I have also been. I also have my own YouTube channel where I talk more specifically about human rights issues in Saudi Arabia, although I haven't been as active as I would like to be in recent years. Yeah, after meeting Ben and starting to get to know a lot of people who are ex-Muslims, who are fleeing persecution, and more generally, people in authoritarian countries under suffering under authoritarian governments and working towards effecting positive change. It's occurred to me that we don't discuss those topics as much as we should, and activists in authoritarian countries like Saudi Arabia, Russia, North Korea, China, they don't have as much of a voice as they should within at least the English-speaking media, or I guess media in general around the world. And when they do have a voice, it is often within this kind of American / Western-centric lens, right? So a lot of the time, like for example, this whole thing with the ex-Muslim movement, a lot of the time our concerns, our plight within our countries, the persecution that we face, and the movements that we're taking part of, those conversations kind of get derailed in the free media, which is primarily based in the West, into things like conversations about immigration, tolerance, wokeism, etc.
And conversation about it ends up being about what's happening in Western countries, ignoring what's happening in Middle East, especially when it comes to ex-Muslims in the Middle East. You end up having people talking about Islamophobia, about, well, Zach, you'd experience Islamophobia as being from a Muslim background. How does it compare to what you dealt with as an atheist in Saudi Arabia?
Well, and I don't know if I could say I really experience like that per se. I mean, sure, there are people who are not nice to immigrants. There's some bad people out there, of course, but I don't think anybody in, like, for example, like in the country I live in Germany, faces the kind of discrimination that religious minorities face in Saudi Arabia, including atheists. I mean, being an atheist there and knowing a number of other atheists there, knowing like people who have different religious beliefs, people get threatened with death quite regularly for this kind of thing. people get blackmailed and abused in ways that some people might find quite unbelievable. I mean an example of something that especially affects ex-Muslim women is, I guess, sort of perception and an intimidation tactic that kind of presents them as as being
Interested in leaving Islam solely to have sex,
among
other things.
I mean, not quite. Yes, that is something you hear sometimes, but I'm more referring to the the fact that a lot of those people end up being in very vulnerable positions where people can easily take advantage of them and kind of use the reasoning of, well, you don't ascribe to my moral worldview, so you're not worthy of this kind of moral consideration, right? You don't, like, for example, wear a headscarf and value the concept of virginity and things like that, for example, the way, the way that we want you to, and so it's fair game to like kind of do whatever I want and kind of get away with it. And I mean, this kind of thing also happens to to men as well. So yeah, I mean, what I'm getting at is there's really no comparison between like what immigrants, Muslims, yes, there are issues where we live. There are issues of inequality. There are issues of discrimination and so forth. They're just not on the same level. They're not on I don't think they even belong on the same discussion, right? Like if on the one hand a person is like not given a job for dressing a certain way or having a certain skin color or whatnot, of course that's problematic, right? On the other hand, you have people going to prison for years on end being tortured because they're Christian, for example, or because they're atheists. Right? I don't think those two phenomena really belong in the same discussion.
Or, in the case of Raif al-Badawi, for saying there shouldn't be a punishment for apostasy from Islam.
Yeah, I mean,
what would Orwell make of that?
Yes. Yeah, so much about Saudi Arabian politics is so many would describe it as Orwellian in that sense. It's like I'm reminded of the case of like this religious cleric in Saudi Arabia who is now in prison and they're actually seeking to execute him. Like the prosecution is going for a death sentence. And the main thing, like the main crime he's accused for, is accusing the Saudi government of being extremists. So, how dare you call us extremist Islamists? We're gonna chop your head off.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of Russia. It's Russia's mirror image of where they've been calling everyone they don't like extremist for 10 years, and now, and also probably worth mentioning, I'm from a Czech background and have Ukrainian family members, and also have a bunch of Westerners who know nothing about where my family comes from, who all of a sudden have all these opinions and are talking about these people who are these soldiers taken out of Azovstal being imprisoned for extremism, not knowing that everyone in Russia that the government doesn't like is likely to be arrested for extremism.
Yeah, if you're living in the U.S. or in the European Union or something, like, it's easy to kind of dismiss that kind of thing. Oh, who knows? Are they an extremist? Are they not an extremist? There's really no way to find out and all of that. But I think like in a very significant proportion of cases, this kind of accusation is just code for we don't like this person's politics.
Yeah.
It's the same with like the Saudi government considering atheism to be a form of terrorism, or like I'm reminded of a propaganda cartoon that they released around like 2019 that categorized suicide bombings with homosexuality, atheism, and feminism as all forms of ideological extremism. So yeah, I mean, those are like in the end, those are just words. They're tools that those government use to silence dissent, and it really shouldn't surprise anyone at that point. And they really shouldn't mean anything at this point. Yeah, so I've talked quite a bit about how things work in Saudi Arabia and my background. I might draw back on that with a lot of our discussions on this show, because this is what I have personal experience with, and also because of that, we probably will have like a disproportionately large number of episodes that focus around like Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, ex-Muslim issues. But we really would like this to be kind of a platform for free citizens who want democratic representation, who want human rights and democracy in their countries, to get together and have good faith discussions about all of this. Like how can we work together as an international community? How can we stand in solidarity with each other as liberals, as free thinkers from Saudi Arabia, as free thinkers from Iran and Russia and China? A lot of the time, our demands really are quite the same, but it's like this exchange is lacking in a lot of ways.
And goodness knows there are so many ways when it would be useful to work together. People from whether North Korea, yeah, or potentially North Korean exiles in South Korea helping ex-Muslims settle there, or Baha'is who are oppressed in Iran. They also have communities in the West. In Canada, we could have a couple Baha'is, a couple atheists in one city, help to sponsor an ex-Muslim, and then a couple ex-Muslims and a couple Baha'is in another city sponsor a Baha'i for a settlement in Canada, because of Canada's refugee system allows just 5 citizens to sponsor a UN registered refugee. That could also help us help a lot more people too if we shared our resources like that.
Yeah, sharing our resources and helping the people most in need, like specifically refugees, people escaping very bad, very oppressive situations. If we could possibly share our resources when it comes to demanding public attention for human rights abuses, and creating networks between activists in like from Saudi Arabia, China, from North Korea, from Iran, kind of discussing the similarities and differences between how those things work in our countries, and learn from each other, and get a unique perspective on that, because like we're living in an increasingly globalized world where like our authoritarian governments are learning from each other, cooperating with each other. They're supporting each other with intelligence and military and all of that, and like
And
they,
technology, terrifying
a lot of the
technology.
time, even when they are in this or that sense at odds, they are still part of this international community, and they have those interactions with each other that end up helping all of them kind of keep the boot on the common man's face, so to speak. If we can pool our resources, pool our solidarity or action, a lot of the time you're gonna see those actions, those protests, those presentations given by this exile activist, or someone from North Korea, someone from Saudi Arabia, someone from Iran. Not all the time, but a lot of the time you're gonna see like a small group from this person's community, like showing the necessary solidarity and support for that, and nobody else. But what we want to communicate here, like on this whole podcast, on every episode that we're gonna release, is, hey, we can do better, and let's try, right? Let's try and push for it. Try and build better, bigger networks, and strive for more multilateral activism, multilateral communication, and widespread global solidarity for very basic very basic values, human rights. We're not talking about any specific, deeply thought out political theory, like, we're not talking about, Bolshevism or anything organized in that way, obviously, right? What we're talking about is citizens from around the world demanding their most basic rights outlined by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which we understand under, like, broadly under liberalism, under representation, under people's sovereignty. Those are principles that I think any well-educated human being should be able to hold. That everyone should have the right to their own thoughts and beliefs, their religious practices. That government can only be lent legitimacy through the will of the people. I don't think those are like far off, niche political positions that only exist in this small part of the world, or that. No, those are very broad values that so many people around the world are fighting for, and we need to just join our hands together. I think that, like, mostly concludes the basic idea of what this podcast is going to be about, what kind of brought us to want to start this. Just thought we'd record a short introduction like this, and introduce you to us. Hopefully you're going to be interested to listen further to our coming episodes. Ben, do you have was there anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I think. Well, I think the big things we're going to cover are theocracy, and things related to it, i.e., the persecution of witchcraft justified by the holy books of whichever theocrats we're talking about. I believe that's a thing both in Saudi Arabia and in a lot of majority Christian African countries, and has been a problem in the past in Europe and North America. Then ethno-nationalism and all the various ways it comes out, just what monarchs have to do to stay in power instead of just having a government that reflects the will of the people, and what they need to do to avoid being overthrown, and how communists stay in power, and whatever exactly Pinochet was. I don't know if there's even a word that describes him, but how people like him take control of countries are all things we'll probably cover, largely with interviews from people who are trying to fight back or stop the persecution.
Anyway, I think our time is done now, and I believe we covered the main points that we wanted to cover. So in that sense, thank you everybody for listening. Have a beautiful evening and goodbye.